The agreement with Iran has failed. The extension of the ceasefire announced by Donald Trump did not bring peace, did not reopen negotiations, and did not make the Islamic Revolutionary Guard back down. On the contrary, in the early hours of this Wednesday, April 22, 2026, what appeared was a confrontation scenario, frozen, only on paper, with the naval blockade maintained by the United States, total distrust in Tehran, and an increasingly strong sense of rupture within the Iranian regime itself. I'll tell you all about that in a moment, but right now, you'll want to subscribe to the channel to stay well informed with real-time information in the best journalistic quality you've ever seen with the trust of Milson Alves Global. So, what happened was the following. Trump accepted Pakistan's request to maintain the truce for a longer period, but decided to continue the blockade of Iranian ports and demanded that Tehran present a unified proposal. But this movement was already born wounded. Neither the American delegation led by J.D. Vance left Washington, nor did the Iranian side confirm their presence in Islamabad. The hotel prepared for the decisive round of talks was ready, but the negotiations simply didn't move forward. The ceasefire was extended unilaterally. A truce was announced, but no real agreement was made. The group that pushed the hardest rejection was the faction linked to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. The Tasnim agency, which is connected to the Guards, said that Iran did not request an extension of the ceasefire and repeated threats to break the blockade by force. Mahdi Mohammadi, advisor to the president of the Iranian parliament, stated that the extension announced by Trump would be a maneuver to buy time for a surprise attack and declared that it is time for Iran to take the initiative. At the same time, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi described the blockade of Iranian ports as an act of war. This explains why it failed. For the Iranian hardliners, negotiating with an active blockade is not negotiation, it's capitulation. Where this crisis becomes most visible is in the Strait of Hormuz. Even with the truce extended by Washington, 3 ships reported gunfire in the strait this Wednesday. Reuters reported that 3 vessels reported gunfire in the region. And the Associated Press reported that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard opened fire on ships and that Tehran did not formally acknowledge the extension of the ceasefire. In other words, the document mentions a pause, but the sea remains in political turmoil. The ceasefire did not defuse the crisis, it merely pushed the crisis into another form, more dangerous and more uncertain. Trump justified the extension by saying that the Iranian government is seriously fractured and that its leaders need to come up with a unified proposal. This sentence is central. Washington is not treating Tehran as a cohesive power. It is treating the regime as a fractured command center, under pressure and without a unified voice. By maintaining the blockade, the United States shows that it wants to exploit exactly this weakness, not to attack immediately, but to tighten the economic and political stranglehold until the other side is forced to give in or to become even more divided. That's why the idea that a coup d'etat could start in Tehran doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes up because, in the midst of the failed talks, reports begin to circulate that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard is overriding the political and clerical wing of the regime. Many reports talk about the movement of guards in the streets of the capital, explosions in Rasht and in the south of Tehran. Rumors of house arrest of President Masoud Pezeshkian, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, and Mohammad Bakr Khalifa AF, one that needs to be confirmed. The military command is trying to take control of the system, although the report itself admits that part of this still awaits verification. In addition, Reuters reported a lack of response from the main Iranian leaders in the hours following Trump's announcement and described the atmosphere as skeptical and tense. The coup, therefore, has not yet been officially confirmed, but the signs of rupture are beginning to accumulate. How does this rupture manifest itself? Through language, through silence, and through the streets. Through language, because the Guard speaks of a military response, not of compromise. Through silence, because the civilian leaders took a long time to react and the Iranian side did not present a unified position. And on the streets, because the Associated Press recorded acts by hardline supporters displaying missiles and launches, while Pakistani authorities were still waiting for a response. One from Tehran about when a delegation would be sent. An Iranian diplomat stated that talks would not resume until the blockade was lifted. This shows a deadlock at the center of power. The hardline faction shows strength, the diplomatic wing loses ground, and negotiations come to a standstill. The impact of this paralysis goes far beyond Iran. Reuters also pointed out that the European Union decided to broaden the criteria for sanctions to target those who block the Strait. So when the agreement fails, it's not just Tehran that feels it. The whole world feels the shock. For now, the one who gains time from this is Donald Trump. He avoids an immediate new bombing, maintains maximum pressure, and holds public opinion with the appearance that he tried to give diplomacy one more chance. And at the same time, he leaves the Islamic Revolutionary Guard facing a tough dilemma. Either it agrees to negotiate under pressure, which weakens it internally, or it rejects the truce and deepens the impression that it is pushing Iran toward more isolation, more economic crisis, and more internal conflict. On the Iranian side, the hardline faction is also playing its game. It rejects the extension because it knows that accepting a truce without lifting the blockade would be admitting weakness in front of the United States. That's why the failure of the agreement and the beginning of an internal dispute go hand in hand. In the end, what happened was the political collapse of an attempt at an agreement. With an extension of the ceasefire, the naval blockade still in place, public rejection by the hardline Iranian faction, attacks on ships, and signs of fracture at the top of the regime, the result is severe. The agreement failed, the truce turned into a power struggle, and Tehran now gives the impression of an increasingly fractured power, with a sense of a coup in the air and no stable leadership in sight. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and at the end, take a look at the comments so you can be even more engaged with the Milson Alves global community.